or Ocelot Pride. So now I think we actually get access to 3 creatures worth of flying. So I'm just going to all in here. Our Guide of Souls and our Ocelot Pride. What's going on, gamers? It's HexDrinkMTG and welcome to another Modern Deck Tech and playthrough. With the recent culmination of the regional championships in both Europe and Canada this weekend, we can truly say that this modern season has shifted into top gear. We now have 3 clear frontrunners as far as archetypes. It's Eldrazi Ramp, Boros Energy, and the Boogeyman, Temur Breach. And with that said, is there a way to attack this metagame? Let's find out. Shout out to the Bulgarian beast, the Transmog Goat, James Dimitrov, aka Shadow Titan 1, who finished second in Saturday's Modern Challenge with the variation on energy. And it's not Mardu, we have Jeskai energy. So why play Jeskai over something like Boros? Well, the big card is consigned to memory. It's key in the Eldrazi Ramp matchup. Not only does it counter Khan and Emrakul's Trigger, but it does counter Kozilek's Return. You may be paying red for the card, but it is in fact colorless, so very important there. Then we have the card Ranger-Captain of Eos in the main deck. This card is in the slot that you typically see Seasoned Pyromancer or Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. What it does is search up a 1-drop from your deck and put it in your hand, but also has the key effect of being able to sacrifice itself to stop opponents from playing non-creature spells this turn. And how that translates practically in this metagame is against breach opponents. They'll cast breach. With the breach on the stack, you'll sacrifice this and effectively time walk them. It's like Orim's chant. So not only do you get to add to the board, but then if necessary you can have that effect as well. So both pressuring combined with disruption. Another key feature is the card Mockingbird. This combines really nicely with Ranger-Captain of Eos, as you can continue that value chain, casting Mockingbird for 3 mana, have it enter as Ranger Captain, search up another 1-drop, maybe a Mockingbird, maybe an Ocelot Pride, or something like a Guide of Souls, and just gives you a lot of different options that way. Mockingbird also has the ability to come in as a copy of Phlage, where you need removal in key spots, or something like a Psychic Frog or Oculus in the blue-black matchup. Next we have 4 copies of Expressive Iteration, a card you might not remember from a couple of modern seasons ago. It's been effectively power crept out of the format, as you don't really see Murktide anymore, thanks to MH3, but very useful for us, able to hit land drops, able to hit 1-drops, decent card advantage option for the deck. Other changes, we have a 23rd land here, the usual 11 fetch lands. We have many sharks this time around, 6 as opposed to the typical 3 that you'll see out of Boros. So we have our usual 3 Sacred Foundries, 2 Hallowed Fountains, and a Steam Vents. Very few basics compared to Boros. We have just the 2 plains, so I think usually it's maybe 3 to 4 plains and a mountain. Our 2 Surveil lands are Meticulous Archive and Elegant Parlor. Some other small differences: 3 copies of Phlage as compared to 4, 2 Bombardments as compared to 3, 2 Ragavans as compared to 3 usually, and then we have 2 Static Prisons and no Chain to the Rocks. Other important little features: we're playing White Orchid Phantom, another card that's very good against Eldrazi Ramp. Wrath the Skies, which kind of functions as our Fearfire foes and is key in the Jeskai Breach matchup. And then as far as Graveyard Hate, we have a copy of Ghost, Vacuum, and Soul Guide Lantern. So I'm going to show you some games from a league I just played. It was a very long league, so I'll let you know the result at the end, but we're going to take a look at 3 matches. Let's get into it. Alright, match number 1, we are on the play. First hand, 5 lands, 2 1-drops. They're very good 1-drops, but too many lands, I would say. Definitely a mulligan here. Next hand, considerably better. We'll keep 2 lands and get to start on Guide of Souls, Ajani. Okay, I'm choosing to keep Arid Mesa so that we have a higher density of options as far as which lands we're able to fetch. So lead on Flooded Strand, Sacred Foundry, Shock, and Guide of Souls. We see Misty Rainforest out of our opponent. That could be Breach or Eldrazi Ramp, as far as I know. A draw iteration there on turn 2, so it'll give us a decent turn 3 play if we don't hit a 3rd land or want to cast Phlage. Here's Ajani for 2 energy and attack for 1 from Guide. Pass back. Okay, we'll get a good sense of what they're up to now, depending on how they fetch. Okay, Hedge Maze. Hedge Maze, and Devourer of Destiny in the graveyard. Okay, so we know they are Eldrazi ramp. They did not have pre-game actions this time. Sanctum of Ugin, I was not aware people played that, but I'd much rather see that than a soul land on turn 2. We do hit our third land. I'm going to Phlage here so that we can get the third energy to power up. Probably Guide of Souls, get it out of range of Kozilek's command for next turn. And then if they soul land something like a Khan or a Microspawn into play, we can combine Galvanic Discharge with Expressive Iteration to spend our mana next turn. We are also just 2 cards away from escaping Phlage. So this is an attack for 6. Opponent's down to 9 already. So definitely feeling the pressure. There's a soul land, so they have access to up to 4 mana this turn. And it's looking like a Microspawn. So fortunately they cannot kick it. We have access to all 3 of our lands. They're probably going to get another soul land. Yep, there's Ugin's Labyrinth. So that'll give them access to up to 7 mana next turn. Could of course cast something like All Is Dust, or a World Breaker, or a Devourer. They're just going to same turn Kozilek's command and exile our token here, draw a card. That was a little bit surprising, but it does remove some of the pressure. We'll start on an Expressive Iteration, see if we can hit land and then double 1-drop. I think I'm going to take, we do miss on the land, but I'm going to take Bombardment for next turn and put, I think, second Ajani in hand. I think we have sufficient gas. So Bombardment goes to hand. Ajani goes on the bottom, and Iteration goes into exile. So that makes a lot of sense because I do want a high density of Ajanis in my deck. And this matchup is not about card advantage. It's about applying pressure and finishing the game early, as they do have the late game inevitability. So here I'm deciding between Ocelot Pride and Galvanic Discharge. So Ocelot Pride is going to give me another cat token, which makes the Goblin Bombardment next turn. So that's why I choose to go with that option as opposed to getting rid of the Microspawn. We do miss out on a point of damage with the Ajani, but we essentially go up multiple points of damage through the cat token on Bombardment. So yeah, now we're just going to see if we get swept or not. There's Rumble. So this gets a red source. They have Talisman of Curiosity and they go for Forest. So still no access to red. They play Forest, so it's looking like there won't be a 7-drop this turn or a sweeper, which is great news for us. They pass back. We draw Static Prison. This is probably just a Static Prison on the Microspawn, play Bombardment. And they're going to respond with... looks like another Kozilek's command. Nope, they're just going to scoop it up, and I don't blame them. Going into game 3, I'm going to bring in Ghost Vacuum to attack Kozilek's Return and the various card types to make Emrakul more expensive. We also get access to the all-powerful Consign to Memory, as well as our White Orchid Phantom. Going to trim a little bit on the card advantage front and definitely get rid of some of our removal. I think Static Prison has application across the board, so we'll keep that. Get rid of our discharges, trim on Ranger Captains, and need to make one more cut. Yep, just straight up 3 Ranger Captains. So we do have some staying power in Phlage, single copy of Ranger Captain, and our 4 iterations, but definitely trimming as far as that's concerned. This first hand is overly reactive, not enough pressure. Too many lands in our second hand, we'll double mulligan. And it looks like our opponent has kept 7. So we're going to have to do our best on 5 cards. Still a bit land heavy. Would have preferred a 3rd creature over a 3rd land. But White Orchid Phantom is quite good. They're going to lead on pre-game Devourer of Destiny. So they're going to get to fix their draw there. They choose to exile 3 cards. And they're going to lead on Breeding Pool Utopia Sprawl. That's a juicy target for our white Orchid Phantom. And they pass back. 4th land. So let's shock in Ocelot Pride, pass the turn. Okay, they're going to main phase fetch. So they have access to up to 3 mana here. Notably not a soul land, something like Ugin's Labyrinth would have enabled turn 2 Khan. Tapping for red already. So maybe they have a hand of multiple Kozilek's returns. It's just a evoked Null Drifter. So they draw 2 and pass back to us. We draw 5th land. So there's going to be some surveilling in our future, and hopefully that surveilling is quite powerful. Fortunately, we do get to fuel our graveyard, so if we can find a Phlage, maybe that's a way to get ahead and give us a fighting chance in this game. So I think their only basic is Forest. They do fetch one of those up off of our white Orchid Phantom. Our board's growing, they don't have a red Talisman in play, and we've dealt with their Utopia Sprawl, so presumably we're pretty safe here as far as keeping our creatures in play. They would need something like a Soul Land to get access to Kozilek's Command. We do see Engineered Explosives for 1, that's fine, as it does only deal with our Ocelot Pride. Here I'm going to attack first and see if I can get them to sack Explosives before we post-combat 2nd Pride. They do sacrifice, and I think I would have... They don't really have a choice, so if they don't want us to make a cat token, I'm not adding 2nd Ocelot until I see that Explosives leave the board. So I guess they are content with not having the Pride trigger, and of course since we didn't deal them damage, the second one won't produce a token either. There's an Eldrazi Temple, so they can microspawn here. Still no access to red mana. Here's Khan. Okay, they are tapped out, so I think the best they can do for no mana would have been something like Engineered Explosives or Tormod's Crypt. They choose to plus Khan, get its loyalty nice and high. We're going to Surveil here on end step. And we see Static Prison. I think I'm going to keep that, exile Khan, and continue to apply pressure to the opponent. Not the most impactful, but I think it'll be good enough in this spot, so we'll keep it. And they do get a little bit punished here for plussing their Khan, in a sense, since it does still get dealt with and they don't end up getting the card. Attack for 4 and make 1 cat. And of course we will Surveil again on the end of their next turn. They're down to 9 now. Okay, tapping 4 more mana. It's another Khan. Let's see if they have a 5th land as well. 4 cards in hand currently. Khan does minus this time. And they get Haywire Might. Okay, can they cast it? No, they cannot. We Surveil. And we see Arena of Glory on top. Somehow that is not one of our 5 lands that we drew this turn, so we're going to pitch it. And Ragavan off the top. So here we can either attack for 7, put them to 2, or kill Khan and get in for 4. I'm going to go with that option B. Running low on energy, unfortunately, for the Static Prison, so we're going to have to make what we do happen pretty fast here. So, a bit of a strange misclick here. I don't attack with one of my cats, so I miss a point of damage on them. Khan does get taken care of, fortunately. But let's see if that 1 point is going to end up costing us in what's looking to be a pretty tight game here. We are resource light, and they're a bit constrained on mana as well. So they're down to 6. We exile Eldrazi Temple from the top of their library. If they get their Khan back with the Haywire Might, our treasures will be useless, but we have plenty of access to mana. And I just need to stack my triggers here. I do, and we have the City's Blessing, so our board's growing nice and big, but Haywire Might will put them up to 8, and we don't have access to a third Surveil land here off of our Arid Mesa. So we're playing off the top, and they need to see if they can deal with our board. So here's a main phase Rumble. They go with Talisman of Impulse, that gives them access to red mana now. So I imagine they're going to be able, if they hit land drop, they are able to cast Kozilek's Return. Okay, they're going to play Haywire Might. So let's say they block 2/1/1s. I'm just going to fetch here on end step. We would get in for 5, putting them down to 3 after they gain the 2 off of Might. So far that 1 point wouldn't matter, or it wouldn't be key. It's going to be 2 life as compared to 1 life. We draw another land. So even though we have a lot of mana sinks, we are drawing the wrong half of our deck this game. I didn't count the Ragavan points, but let's say it block Ragavan, Ocelot Pride, they would take 6. And I'll put them to 2 instead of 1. Yeah, it's the same. I think I did count the Ragavan. So let's see if they block sack with Haywire Might or they trade against Ragavan. Notably, Kozilek's Return an instant, so it does get some counterplay towards Ragavan's dash. So yeah, I think they can afford to just block sack, get back their con this turn as opposed to next turn, get access to another minus. Okay, they do kill our Static Prison. Here's Khan. Down but not out. In fact, he had a nice rest and is up to a very healthy 5 loyalty now. And then the spawn will sack itself, of course, to prevent the life gain. And we pass back with some cats and Ragavan in hand. I think I'm going to play my planes post-combat as well, just to make sure we have access to the maximum amount of mana if we chain Expressive Iterations on our next turn. I actually don't play planes there. I think maybe the rationale was, hey, if I can get them to play more conservatively somehow, thinking that I have Consign, maybe that's worthwhile. But I think they're far enough behind where that's not really a valid way to think. They would go for it regardless. So probably should have played the planes there. Our opponent minuses their con and wishes for Torpor Orb. Okay. But they do hold up 3 mana and pass back. So I guess up to 4 mana for Kozilek's Return. We draw another land. It's starting to get pretty bad at this point. I'm just going to go for the kill here, ignoring Khan. Of course, we don't dash Ragavan as we do have lethal through Kozilek's Return, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we do have lethal through Kozilek's Command, exiling something and making tokens. So if they do have return, we get to keep Ragavan for a future turn and possibly threaten lethal with that. And now, of course, we do get punished for missing that point earlier, as they do need to take a point of damage for red to cast Kozilek's Return, and that, of course, would have killed them. So, yep, this is one of the mistakes that pretty much only happens online. Bit of a misclick, and yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to win this game now. Certainly very far behind. Here's planes, pass a turn. They've been missing land drops, so they have all spells in hand. They can't tap for color, any color of mana anymore for the Talisman of Impulse. But yeah, maybe their big haymakers are going to be enough to end the game. Here we're being Emerald. Let's see if they use their Sanctum of Ugin. So I think our only ways out now are creature Goblin Bombardment on our next turn. Oh, sorry, like iteration into creature Goblin Bombardment or Phlage to burn them out, as I'm pretty sure they will dash Ragavan to its doom running into the Emrakul there. There was a decent amount of lag, as I'm sure you can tell. Our opponent already getting into the red as far as their clock. They wish for Tormod's Crypt off of Khan, which I think is a great idea. They exile our graveyard, and that's not going to give us access to an escaped Phlage. So let's say we top deck Phlage here. We wouldn't be able to cast and escape Phlage to then win on our turn. And of course we do top deck Phlage. So ultra punished for that 1 point of damage, as you know, we could have easily won if we drew this Phlage on any of the turns where we drew lands, but you know, that's how it goes. So here I imagine they'll Phlage us and dash Ragavan, and then we don't have any cards in graveyard to escape Phlage. So on our bonus turn, pretty much our only out will be Expressive Iteration into creature Bombardment or another Phlage. So yeah, we're being mind controlled right now. They're down to only 2.5 minutes at this point. You know, we're definitely live on draws, so I don't see why I would concede in this spot. We're not out of the game by any means, although we're certainly very low percentage to take it. And I mean, at this point, with 1 minute and 30 seconds, I just want to see our next draw step. So here comes Ragavan, marching to its doom. Emrakul blocks, 38 seconds. They don't even have lethal on their turn. And yeah, they scoop it up. Okay, match number 2. Our first hand is pretty decent. We have a 1-drop into 1-drop Surveil. We could also naturally draw into another 1-drop. But not the best, not the worst. Definitely a keep, I think. They start on Spire Bluff Canal. Haven't seen that in Modern for a little bit. And they bolt our Ocelot Pride. Surveil land into Surveil land. I think... I'm not 100% sure what I would do. My inclination is to bin it, as I want to draw into an untapped land, or just iteration into land 1-drop, ideally. So we do pitch that. Holding up Galvanic Discharge. They have Bloodstained Maya here. Into Mountain. And Slickshaft Show Off has been plotted. So it looks like a blue-red Prowess deck. We have lots of interaction, but some of it is sorcery speed. So here we're going to lead on iteration after drawing Sacred Foundry. I think I'm going to take Bombardment and put Static Prison on bottom, exile Arena of Glory, allow us to hold up Galvanic Discharge. It may have been right to take Static Prison, but I don't think we're going to have like a lot of excess of energy, so they're not very good in multiples typically. And Bombardment with something like an Ajani, if we draw that, is going to be exceptional in being able to control the board. Here I consider casting Galvanic Discharge in response to Preordain, but I'm concerned about exactly mutagenic growth. I don't want to get blown out and punished with extra damage pre-combat. So I'm going to take my beats here and then look to end step Galvanic Discharge. Same thing here. I just think it's very risky. The downside outweighs the upside. So we're going to take, a hefty 8 here, go to 9, but then, presumably get a clean pick off on this Slick Shot on end step. So now if they mutagenic, we can just deal with it on our turn with Phlage. They do mutagenic. So we actually bank some energy here, which is fantastic. And now that'll make our Static Prison a lot more powerful and any future discharges as well. Here's Ocelot Pride. So yeah, I think it's just going to be Phlage, chuck in Sacred Foundry, Ocelot Pride, make a token pass. And we'll go to 10. They have 2 cards in hand. They have another mutagenic growth. Well, in that case, we'll just chuck in Static Prison and make sure we deal with this Slick Shot show off. So if we had gone for that Galvanic Discharge there, we would have been super dead. I'm surprised they didn't just all in. I'm pretty sure that would have been lethal, right? So, no, that would have put us to 1 maybe. Would have been +8. Yeah, that would have put us to 1, so it makes sense that they didn't go for it. Okay, they untap with 2 cards in hand. Here's Expressive Iteration for them, so that's going to be pretty nice to help rebuild. We do have Escaped Phlage on our turn, which is awesome. Of course, it is hasted with Arena of Glory, and they're not interested in seeing that happen. So here my plan... I actually decided that white Orchid Phantom would be pretty good, as it is a flying first striker. So it does make them have to preemptively pump their Slick Shot show off. I think Ragavan's also quite good. If they have something like Swift Spear, they're going to have to hold that back. And, you know, we essentially gain life by, you know, them doing so. But if they have something like Lava Dart, then Ragavan is really bad. At the same time, Ranger-Captain of Eos is not great, as once again this matchup is very much about racing and not value. Also looking to bring in Wrath the Skies, a bit of a non-bow with Static Prison, but you know, sometimes you can't help these things. We end up keeping both Ragavans on the play and trimming some Ranger Captains and an Expressive Iteration. First hand, mulligan. Second hand, pretty decent hand actually. I think I'm going to put back Ajani and keep Mockingbird for what is likely to be a Guide of Souls copy. We're actually on the draw, I misspoke. And yep, here we're going to go Shock Hallowed Fountain, play Guide of Souls, turn 1. They have no play turn 1, which is very nice for us. And we'll see if we can attack their blue mana here on turn 2. So it's looking like another bolt on our Guide of Souls. Yep. It's not going to let us have nice things. Okay. Mountain into another plotted show-off. Okay, we draw third land. I am going to want access to red, and we don't have mountains, so I'm just going to shuck in a Sacred Foundry. Just kidding, I'm going to get plains. So I'm going to delay the decision on that. We do, of course, need access to red to escape Phlage. So probably going to consider that down the line. We're not locked out of it in having to fetch 5 lands in order to have access to that. So we do blow up their Steam Vents. They get a mountain. Now they have to shuck another Steam Vents into play to get access to blue. Here's Slick Shot. Pre-combat Preordain. They scry 2 top, which is absolutely terrifying. And they also have 4 cards in hand still. Here's Unholy Heat on our Knight. And just a clean 5 as things stand with the Slick Shot. Okay. We draw Expressive Iteration. So we can either Ajani and Static Prison, or we can Expressive Iteration into Static Prison. I think it's important to get on board, so I'm probably going to Ajani. I will shock this time, as we do need access to red, so we're getting quite low at this point. And yeah, here's Static Prison. Maybe should have gone for a Steam Vents there myself, just so we can same turn Mockingbird Iteration if necessary. But I do go for the Sacred Foundry as things stand. We are quite low in energy, so we need to replenish that here if we're going to win before they kill us. Second slick shot on their side, and we do see lava darts, so Ragavan's probably going to get cut. And they're going to put us to 2. That was a bit of a strange decision. I think I would have put us to 4 and gotten rid of Ajani personally. But they have 2 cards in hand. We're going to pay our energy for Static Prison. And we're going to lead on Expressive Iteration. Okay, so we see Guide of Souls and another Ajani. We don't have red card to Legend Raw Ajani. But we do have Guide of Souls. So, if for whatever reason none of their last 2 cards are burn spells, then we're still in it. So yeah, we're just going to bank on that. I don't see how that's the case since they did scry 2 to the top. They play Spire Bluff and they attack us for 1. So it's looking like we are going to have another turn here. And it's going to be a very big turn at that. I think Mockingbird's likely going to copy Guide of Souls. We're going to Phlage and gain a lot of life. So that's going to be how much? 1, 3, 6. Putting us to 7. And most likely dealing with Slick Shot, because if they had any sort of pump spell, they would have used it to kill us. So there's Phlage. And that's the game. So 2 wins now. Going into match number 3, we take a mulligan on a 1-lander. This hand in the dark is probably good enough. Putting back a Phlage just to have a mixture of cards. And our opponent leads on Arid Mesa, which is probably just an energy mirror. We draw a 3-drop. I think this is a mistake on my part. I think I should have gotten Sacred Foundry here, and I ended up getting Steam Vents. I wanted to get access to blue, but we do have white in hand already. So basically you choose between, do you want to not be able to cast a card in your hand as things currently stand, or do you want to potentially not be able to cast a card that's not in your hand in the future as things stand? So, you know, by that logic, I think I should have fetched Sacred Foundry. Let's see if it ends up biting us here by the time we roll around to turn 3. We have an excellent draw in Ajani. We're also very happy to see that their answer to Ragavan is Static Prison and not something like play Ocelot Pride or play Ajani or just simply Galvanic Discharge it. So they're having to spend energy here up front without having any means of generating any more. I think they're forced to deal with our Ajani here on this turn, so probably just Phlaging it. They do. And now we'll see if we can cast our Ranger-Captain. We end up drawing Ocelot Pride. So yeah, we're definitely hurting here from having access to only 1 mana, only 1 white mana. We can neither play Ocelot Pride and hold up Thraben Charm, nor can we play Ranger-Captain. So definitely quite a big punt, honestly. So they're getting to spend their mana efficiently. We're seeing Arena of Glory for them now. To exert and haste their Phlage pretty soon here. We'd have access to Thraben Charm, so that's going to be tied up and exiled in their graveyard. And they also put together the combination of Goblin Bombardment and Ajani. And yeah, I mean, they can freely do this here, as if we kill their Ajani in response to the trigger, they are able to sacrifice it and clean up the rest of our board as well. So it makes sense to me that they went for it. And yeah, here's the second white source. I think too little too late. So here we're going to have to spend the entire turn dealing with their graveyard. Our Ragavan's going to die for free to their Ajani, and it's just all downhill from here. It's difficult to say how this game would have played out if I'd fetched correctly, because we essentially took 2 turns off. And I mean, we spent this entire turn basically dealing with their graveyard. So yeah, Ajani's just doing Ajani things. being super busted with Goblin Bombardment. So pretty much our only hope here is to see if we can put together Phlage plus Escape. So we do need second white. And I do get Meticulous Archive. Let's see if we can surveil a Phlage. We cannot. Ocelot Pride is too weak into Goblin Bombardment. So I'm going to pitch that. Okay, another chance at naturally surveilling a Phlage. We do have 3, so fewer than usual. I think Discharge will be good enough for next turn to combine Escaped Phlage plus Discharge. Try and catch us back up. Here we're at 14. I'm going to get rid of Ajani. Pretty key. And then next turn, if we get to Escape Phlage plus Galvanic Discharge, I probably will aim 1 Phlage trigger to the face and 1 to Goblin Charm and token. They have dashed Ragavan. Okay, because we surveilled to the top, they were going to want to exile our top card. And of course, they do see that Galvanic Discharge. So they're going to get to bank 3 energy here. And that is massive punish for us if they have the Galvanic Discharge of their own, as they're going to be able to deal with our Phlage for 1 mana. And we're only going to get access to 1 trigger, which is probably not going to be enough to win this game. So here I'm tapping incorrectly. You need to pay red to activate Arena of Glory's Exerted mode. There we go. Yeah, so basically testing whether or not they have Galvanic Discharge in hand. They still have 3 cards, one of which is Ragavan. And yeah, let's see. I think we're so low at this point that we have to shoot face. But that might be lethal anyway. So they have 8 points of attackers plus 4 points of Goblin Bombardment. So maybe I should have just gone straight for the Goblin Charm in there, since they do have lethal regardless. And yeah, we do see Galvanic Discharge, so I think that's good enough. So we'll go to game 2. Pretty serious misplay on our part, so we'll see if we can make up for that here in the remainder of the games. We're going to be on the play this time. I'm going to put in a Wrath the Skies in place of one of the Static Prisons, and we'll trim on Ragavan. Try it that way. Also bring in some Graveyard Hate for their Phlages. This hand looks pretty good. Lands and spells. Good curve. Definitely one that can win. Yep, just lead on planes here. Delay the decision and give ourselves access to surveilling down the line if possible. Again, you know, you don't want to see your 1-drop get dealt with, but if it's going to be dealt with anything, I'd much rather have it be Static Prison over something like Discharge. So they're committing to spending energy here early, and we may get access to our card again down the line. So yeah, I'm just going to shock in a Sacred Foundry and Ajani on turn 2. Just continue to curve out and try and pressure the opponent as they jump through hoops to pay for Static Prison. Here's an Ajani of their own. And yeah, pretty awkward that we drew a land there. I think we have to deal with their Ajani. So I'm first going to offer the trade here on Cat Token. There's no way they take that since they tapped out, so we get free 2 points in. And then I'm going to discharge their Ajani and surveil on their end step. Feels bad, but I think it's necessary, unfortunately. So they have 1 turn left on this Static Prison if they don't add any energy. And it's looking like they're going to Phlage our Ajani into open mana, so... Yep, they go for it, and of course it dies. Now we also have the problem of needing to deal with their Phlage down the line. They choose to not attack us, as they are a little bit behind on the damage race. We get Blue Source and Guide of Souls on top. I think that's good enough. And then we'll just Ranger-Captain plus shock in. Second red. And we got to 2 energy now. And then of course we're going to get our second guide back from their static prison on their turn. And that's going to be 2 more energy, 2 more life. Just going to get a Mockingbird here. Give ourselves an option or options going down the line. And get in for 2. We choose to trade. And there's our Guide of Souls trigger. Now next turn we can go pretty crazy. They play Seasoned Pyro. We can make 3rd Guide of Souls and just produce. If we copy Ranger, get Mockingbird, make it another Guide of Souls, we should have enough energy to be able to attack with 2 guys and get them flying. But we do untap and draw Ocelot Pride. So now I think we actually get access to 3 creatures worth of flying. So I'm just going to all in here. Potentially a little bit risky into something like a Wrath of Skies on their side. But, you know, I'm going to make them have it. And I'm not going to sacrifice Ranger Captain either to prevent that. That maybe is a mistake in my thinking, since I think that's the only thing that can win the game for them. But maybe an escaped Phlage can as well. So yeah, just make the first Mockingbird a Ranger Captain. It goes and fetches up another Mockingbird. This time making a copy of Guide of Souls, and then finishing off with a Ocelot Pride, putting us to 10 energy. So we do of course have 3 jumps available. That's going to be a total of 5 plus 6, 11 points down to 5. And they would be untapping with 3 cards in hand. So yeah, maybe Wrath the Skies for them is their only out. If they have Arena of Glory Phlage, they can kill our Guide of Souls and our Ocelot Pride on the ground. Let's say they kill one of our flying Guide of Souls. They go to 11. Then we have 8 points of flying damage. And yeah, so I think it's probably correct to not sacrifice Ranger Captain like I've done, since it does fly. It is a Mockingbirded Ranger Captain. And yeah, we take that one down with a nice curve out draw. So on the draw here, I'm thinking, okay, let's bring in the second Wrath of the Skies. We are likely to be on the back foot. So yeah, we're going to cut one of the cards that doesn't synergize with it. We mulligan to 6, and we keep a 1-lander. Looking to naturally draw into land number 2, so we can shock in Guide of Souls turn 1. There was Ocelot Pride, so I'm just going to shock in Galvanic Discharge and make sure we deal with that. So, pretty nice there to draw into a land naturally. They play tapped land, so we know they don't have Ajani, we know they don't have a 1-drop. They probably don't have Galvanic Discharge, they don't have Bombardment. So what's their hand? It's probably like Thraben Charm, Phlage, Pyro, maybe like a Showdown of the Skalds, maybe Wrath of Skies, and possibly quite land heavy. So there's Thraben Charm, that makes a lot of sense. They deal with our Bombardment. They pass back to us. I think this is a choice between Guide of Souls, Ajani, or Ranger Captain. I think it's quite likely that they have Phlage on their turn, so we'll make them have it. And cast Ranger Captain for a Mockingbird, then maybe we can have a rather crazy turn next turn if we draw land. Pretty difficult spot there. I'm not sure what the best way to approach a Phlage on their turn would be. So here's Phlage. I think I misclick here or just forget to sacrifice my Ranger Captain, so they gain 3 life that they shouldn't. We'll see if that ends up costing. A very timely draw of Ghost Vacuum there, so I'm just going to go double Guide of Souls, Ghost Vacuum, deal with Phlage. And we're really nicely set up going into our next turn. And then obviously if the game goes long and the Ghost Vacuum sits around, it's going to be very effective once we get around to 6 mana, as it will give us a Phlage trigger and probably a ton of Guide of Souls triggers, maybe a Ranger-Captain trigger, and obviously the ability to sacrifice that, stop them from casting non-creatures, and then all these cards also have flying, or the tokens do. So they Surveil. They still have 4 cards in hand. So we just want to not see another Phlage, and it's looking like they're paying X, so I think this is a Wrath the Skies for 1, which is very strong against what we did. So I'm thinking if we had gone maybe like, I don't think you can Ajani there instead of playing 2 Guides of Souls. I think you need to make them have it, but it makes a lot of sense that they have the card based on what we deduced from their turn 2. So again, not sure if I went with the right play. I'm going to Ranger-Captain again here, get another Mockingbird. And I mean, we are basically drawing all spells this game, which is great. That's what you're going to have to do if you get swept to be able to stay in the game. I think here I get to sacrifice my Ranger-Captain. Do I actually do it? Wow, I'm so good. So they don't gain the 3 life this time, but there is another Phlage that we have to deal with now. We do have up to 6 energy off our Galvanic Discharge, so excellent draw once again. So instead of passing with having done nothing into their escape Phlage turn, we're just going to put Goblin Bombardment in play and set up for a Ajani flip next turn. And we unfortunately are not able to hold up Discharge based on how I've fetched. I think again I probably messed up by not fetching Steam Vents, so just something to be conscious of. This does let us cast Ranger-Captain plus white 1-drop if we have 4 mana, but you could just draw any land basically to allow you to do that. So yeah, we deal with Phlage, and here's Ajani. We'll also get a nice Surveil on their end step, so we can hopefully set up a good draw or prevent ourselves from drawing a land. So here's Ajani flip. Interesting spot. I choose to plus it. Maybe I'm a coward. I just don't want them to Galvanic Discharge it. They don't have any energy, so they're not able to kill it with Galvanic Discharge, and then they're also unable to Phlage it on this turn. So the only way to deal with it would be like a Static Prison or something. Okay, they do have Static Prison, and again, I think we deduced that is one of the cards they might have. So yeah, a bit of a punish, but who knows, maybe one of the other cards is Galvanic Discharge. So potentially missing out on a cat there. Importantly, they don't have energy banked, so this is an Ajani that is potentially going to come back to us. Here, I think Galvanic Discharge is too reactive. We can't be taking this. I want to hit something like an Expressive Iteration and get the ball rolling. So we're going to bin it off the Surveil, and we'll see. Hopefully we don't draw a land, but we've drawn so few, we're likely to draw another one at some point. Arena of Glory is pretty good for when we do find our own Phlage. So if I'm going to draw a land, I want it to be that or a fetch into our second Surveil. They're in the red now on their clock, so it's going to come down to the wire this match. I think this is their 3rd Phlage. So pretty nice for them. And now we're down to 6. They're also building up cards in graveyard and not playing lands, so they're probably very removal heavy in hand. Okay, here's Ocelot Pride plus Mockingbird, and I've exerted Arena of Glory to haste Mockingbird so that we can potentially get a life gain trigger and pop off with the City's Blessing. And just go crazy with our Bombardment. Let's see if that's good enough here, or if they are going to remove our hasted cat. I think more than likely they have a Galvanic Discharge, and they're tapping for red. They do have Galvanic Discharge. So here I decide to not sacrifice the cat for a point of damage. They're at 27. I'd much rather charge them an energy for the exchange. And for whatever reason, I think maybe they had a brain fart or misclicked, so they didn't kill our Ocelot Pride, and it's going to be pretty punishing for them now. They just banked the energy and didn't spend one. So our Mockingbird Ocelot Pride gets to attack and gets to make us a bunch of cats. So yep, we have 2 cats, and they have 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So here's another static prison. Goes for a bombardment. I don't think it makes sense to sacrifice any of our board to stop that, with them at 27 and having no board. And here is 4th Phlage for them. So we're going to lose both of our Ocelot Prides. They're going to go to 29, and we're going to have to deal with an escaped Phlage with just 4 cat tokens. So, oh, Wrath the Skies is interesting. So I think I'm going to wait for them to bring back their Phlage, and then we're going to Wrath the Skies. So at least that way we deal with their graveyard, and we can maybe win once we get access to our Ajani Goblin Bombardment. We are very low, so they're going to probably put us to 5 here off of Escape Phlage if they get to do that this turn. They just need a fetch land, and they're actually going to get the 5th card off of Surgical Extraction on our Discharge. They don't even bother exiling our other copies, but they do see Wrath the Skies in our hand, so we'll see if that will change their play in any way. They have their back up against the wall here with just 1 minute and 45 seconds remaining. Here's an escape Phlage. I think they're going face, and they're just going to try and draw something. So yeah, we're just going to execute our plan. I'm going to attack first, get some points in, Wrath the Skies, ping with Ajani. And now we also have coverage for their graveyard, having drawn Thraben Charm. So I think even if this game, you know, even if time doesn't end up being a factor, I think we're now in a great spot for this game. You know, we're at 5, but I'm not going to fetch again and make it so that we lose to anything strange like a Lightning Bolt. We are going to deal with their Bombardment. So they have a single card in hand. I think this one might actually be a land at this point, but might not. We actually get to bank an energy. And here's our Ajani with Goblin Bombardment. So our board's established. We have an answer to Phlage. We haven't found any of our Phlages, so they are all still in our deck. We do have Arena of Glory, so as soon as we draw a Phlage, the game, I think, ends on the spot. And yeah, race against the clock, but also I think we are solidly advantaged here. They play a land and a Pyro with no cards in hand, so they're going to draw 2, pretty nice. But no board. So I'm just going to plus kill Pyro with Ajani. Probably not attack, in case they have Arena of Glory on their turn, plus some sort of attacker. I'm just going to also trade the rest of my board for these Ocelot Prides. So yeah, plus, kill Pyro, we draw another land. Kill Pyro, ping the Ocelot Prides, exile their last Phlage, and then pass the turn back to them. So we are a bit vulnerable to something like Arena of Glory or Ragavan. But I doubt they have Ragavan's post board, and they have no cards in hand now since they played the 2 Ocelot Prides. I'm going to play our land and pass back. So yeah, I think now it's just definitely up to clock and not dying. They do have an Arena of Glory off the top, so pretty scary. We draw Marsh Flats, so I make cat ping them, play Marsh Flats, pass. F6, F6, F6. We do have a Surveil land left in our deck, but I don't think I'm going to be doing that. They play a land for their turn. I play Arena of Glory, make cat attack. I think this is probably foolish on my part. I should just be F6ing. I don't even think I'm going to attack here. I think they're too high. Or I do. I don't. They have another Pyro. Pyro to draw 2 cards. They didn't even try and cast any spells. They're just F6ing. I'm going to kill their Pyro since they cannot bring it back here on end step. Bring it back, make the elementals, and attack with 2 Cat Warriors. But maybe I'm throwing a game that I don't need to throw. It's a very strange, delicate balance. Like, typically you would be F6ing here, but at the same time we're in a spot where we might lose. And they time out, it looks like. Yeah, so I made it closer than it should have been, but there you go, 3 games. This league ended up being a 4-1. Also played against Blue-Red Twin, beat them, and lost 2-1 against another Boros Energy opponent in a pretty close set. So there's Jeskai Energy. And that does it for the games. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out this channel's other videos by clicking right here. And if you would like YouTube to notify you the next time I put out a piece of content, the best way to do so is to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.